Have you ever felt your cozy Sunday afternoon calm just um, completely vanish the second your brain whispers, tomorrow is Monday?
Oh, it is a profound, almost physical shift, isn't it? Like your body is resting on a comfortable sofa, maybe you're wrapped in a blanket, but your nervous system has already commuted to the office.
Yeah, you've already started answering emails in your head.
Exactly. You're pretty much working on a Sunday.
That is just the perfect way to describe it. I mean, you are sitting there, the sun is shining, the coffee is warm, and suddenly, out of nowhere, this invisible weight just drops onto your chest. So, welcome to Everyday English Flow. This deep dive is your daily English practice, designed to give you natural speaking and effortless listening flow.
And we really have an incredibly dense, transformative journey planned for you today. If you have ever felt that Sunday dread, or if you simply want to learn how to navigate the modern world with a bit more mental lightness, well, you are in exactly the right place.
Absolutely. Because today, we are looking at a really comprehensive stack of cognitive behavioral therapy journals, linguistic case studies, and some modern psychological frameworks to map out our mission. We're going to decode the mechanics of why our minds sabotage our peace.
Right, and more importantly, how you can actually take the control panel back.
Precisely. And just to give you a clear roadmap for this deep dive, we are going to explore exactly 4 core psychological frameworks for mental lightness and happiness. And since this is about elevating your communication just as much as your mindset, we are going to master exactly 12 C1 level English vocabulary expressions along the way.
I love that we're combining the psychology with the language practice.
I am genuinely looking forward to this.
Yes.
4 frameworks, 12 advanced expressions, and 1 massive upgrade to how you approach your week. And listen, I really want you to make sure you stick around until the very end because we have a special bonus waiting for you.
Oh, yes, the bonus is crucial.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are going to do a calm word tour that will completely lock in the language learning from today's discussion. You really will not want to miss it.
Yeah, it is going to perfectly solidify everything we cover today. So let's dive into our first framework by looking closely at that transition from Sunday afternoon into Monday morning.
Let's do it.
Because it is widely believed in behavioral psychology that how you handle those first few moments of consciousness, well, it dictates the entire trajectory of your week.
I have absolutely noticed that in my own life. Like you wake up on Monday morning, the alarm goes off, and it is almost like the brain immediately boots up a radar
Well,
system.
the threat detection radar.
Exactly. It's actively scanning the environment for threats. You open your eyes, and before you have even stretched your arms, your mind is furiously searching for what is wrong.
Right, and what you're describing there is a well-documented psychological phenomenon. The brain actually has a built-in negativity bias.
Really, a built-in bias.
Yeah, if we look at the evolutionary mechanics behind it, this is an ancient survival tool. It's driven by the amygdala, which is basically the brain's threat detection center.
It's biological.
It's entirely biological. Thousands of years ago, waking up and immediately checking for danger, well, that kept you alive. You needed to know right away if a predator was outside your cave.
But, I mean, the context has completely changed now. In the modern world, the danger isn't a saber-toothed tiger waiting in the bushes, right? It's an unanswered email from a frustrated client.
Or a looming project deadline.
Yeah, or a sudden financial stressor. Our biology is literally reacting to an inbox the exact same way it used to react to a physical predator.
And that evolutionary mismatch right there is the root of so much modern anxiety. However, psychological practice shows that the happiness switch, the cognitive ability to turn off that primal threat response, is located entirely inside you.
Wait, entirely inside you?
Yes, it is not in your job, it is not in your phone, and it's certainly not in the actions of other people.
Okay, let's examine that closely. Because saying the happiness switch is inside, you can sound a bit dismissive, maybe, to someone going through a hard time.
Sure, it can sound like toxic positivity if we don't explain it properly.
Right. Because a lot of people might hear that and think, well, if I had a better salary or if my boss wasn't so demanding, my environment would be fixed and I would naturally be happy. But you are suggesting the primary control panel is internal, not external.
It is entirely internal. And this actually brings us to our very first C1 level vocabulary expression for today, which is the phrasal verb to dwell on.
To dwell on.
Yeah, to dwell on something means to sit on a negative thought for a prolonged period, just replaying it again and again in your mind.
So it is quite different from just remembering something or even reflecting on it.
That's exactly the distinction we need to make. Reflecting kind of implies analysis, you know. You are looking at a past event to learn from it. Dwelling, on the other hand, is ruminating.
It's like you're stuck in it.
Exactly. It is not just a passing memory, it is setting up camp in a negative space. You aren't trying to solve the problem, you are just marinating in the distress it causes.
I see the nuance there.
Hmm.
So, here's an example sentence to show how it is used in daily conversation. You open your eyes on Monday morning, and immediately you dwell on all the problems waiting for you, like that unanswered email.
That's a perfect example.
Notice how in that sentence, dwell on up conveys an action that consumes time and emotional energy. You're obsessing over the email, imagining a terrible response, and just letting it sour your morning before your feet even touch the floor.
And when you continuously dwell on things like that, it fundamentally shifts your cognitive filter, which naturally leads us right into our second C1 word, which is outlook.
Outlook.
Yes. The definition of outlook is the perspective or the general way you look at life and the world around you.
So it is essentially the lens through which you view your reality.
It is the lens, yes. If your outlook is cynical, even a nice compliment will sound like an insult. But if your outlook is optimistic, a setback just looks like a puzzle to solve.
So an example sentence for our listeners would be, nothing was fundamentally wrong with my life, but my outlook was completely negative.
Exactly. The physical situation hasn't changed at all.
Right. Your house is exactly the same, your job is the same, your family is the same, but your outlook, your internal filter has turned a shade of gray. Everything looks bleak simply because the lens is dirty.
And what is truly fascinating here, and honestly slightly alarming, is how quickly we can ruin our own outlook just by what we choose to consume in those fragile first few waking moments.
Oh, this is where the mechanics of our habits become so clear. Because when we wake up with a slightly negative outlook, a bit of that Sunday night dread, we generally do not try to fix it. We actually feed it.
We do. We lean right into it.
I like to think of the mind as a hungry animal waking up in the morning. Imagine your mind as this hungry little creature. It wakes up, its stomach is rumbling, and it looks directly to you to feed it.
And ideally, you would want to feed it something nourishing, right?
Precisely. If you handed a bowl of fresh fruit, metaphorically speaking, like something calming or inspiring, it will have clean, sustainable energy for the day. But what is our default behavior?
We reach blindly for our smartphones on the nightstand before we even sit up.
Exactly. We open algorithmic social media feeds, we check global news headlines, we read angry arguments in the comment sections.
Yeah, we feed this hungry animal a really dense diet of anxiety, outrage, and social comparison.
Yes. We give it bad news, scary political posts, toxic comments. It is what we can call the ultimate sad breakfast for the brain.
Yeah.
You're feeding that hungry animal absolute garbage, and then you spend the rest of the day wondering why the creature feels sick, tired, and irritable.
That sad breakfast analogy aligns so perfectly with the neuroscience of morning routines. When you consume highly stimulating negative information first thing in the morning, you are artificially inducing a massive stress response.
A physical response.
Yes, physical. You are immediately elevating cortisol and adrenaline levels in your bloodstream. You are essentially bypassing your logical brain and telling your nervous system, the world is incredibly dangerous today. Be on high alert.
Wow. So from a purely biological standpoint, of course your outlook becomes negative. Of course you start to dwell on problems. You just chemically programmed your brain to do so.
That reframes the entire concept, doesn't it? It isn't just a bad habit. It is an actual chemical sabotage of your own day.
It really is. So how do we stop feeding the animal this sad breakfast?
Well, this requires a highly actionable strategy, introducing our third C1 expression, which is short-circuiting.
Short-circuiting. Now that sounds very mechanical.
It is originally a mechanical and electrical term, yeah. Typically, when wires cross incorrectly, the electrical current is interrupted and the machine abruptly stops.
Right, like a blown fuse.
Exactly. But in psychology, to short circuit means to intentionally and abruptly interrupt a bad mental pattern. It is the active intervention of changing the direction of your thoughts right at the exact moment you feel them heading down a dark, familiar tunnel.
So if I wake up and I can physically feel my chest tightening because my brain is starting to dwell on an argument I had yesterday, and my hand instinctively reaches for my phone to distract myself with angry news, the precise second is the moment to short-circuit the system.
That is the critical window, and the most effective psychological tool to do this is what we call the 5-minute reset.
The 5-minute reset, how does that work?
The underlying logic here is based on how the brain manages cognitive load. When you are overwhelmed, your brain actively resists large, sweeping tasks.
Okay.
If you are lying in bed full of dread and you tell yourself, I need to change my entire life philosophy right now and be a happy person today, well, your brain assesses that as an impossible mountain to climb.
It just shuts down.
Right. It says, that is way too much effort. Let's just stay miserable in bed.
Because the barrier to entry is just way too high.
Exactly. But you can easily negotiate with your brain to change just the next 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. I love that. It lowers the stakes completely.
You cannot always change your whole life or even guarantee a good day, but you have absolute sovereignty over your next 5 minutes. You short-circuit the negative spiral by taking one small physical action.
Like what kind of action?
You physically put the phone in another room. You stand up, walk to the window, and open it to let fresh, cold air hit your face. You play exactly one happy, upbeat song, or you just put on your shoes and step outside for a 10-minute walk.
It seems the core mechanism here is about utilizing physical movement to interrupt a mental state.
It is a profound biological hack. The mind and body operate in a continuous feedback loop. When you change the physical environment through temperature changes with fresh air, auditory changes with music, or kinetic changes with movement, you force the brain to process new sensory data.
And this new data literally interrupts the rumination cycle.
Exactly. It short-circuits the anxiety.
Let's expand on this with a metaphor, actually. The metaphor of the mind is a garden, which the literature often points to. If you have a patch of rich soil and you just leave it completely alone, what happens? You don't get a beautiful lawn. Wild weeds just grow by themselves.
Yeah, they just take over.
And you don't ever have to water weeds, right? You don't have to fertilize them or carefully plant their seeds. Negative news, workplace drama, dwelling on past mistakes, those are the cognitive weeds. Because of our negativity bias, they just appear naturally and aggressively if you leave the mental garden untended.
They thrive on neglect, absolutely.
But if you want flowers, or if you want to grow vegetables, you have to actively and intentionally plant seeds. You have to make a choice about what goes into the soil. A 5-minute walk, listening to a beautiful piece of music, taking 30 seconds to write down one specific thing you are grateful for, those are seeds.
And neuroplasticity tells us that if you plant enough of these seeds and cultivate them daily, the neural pathways for joy actually become stronger.
So the weeds get crowded out.
Exactly. Eventually, the weeds have no room to grow because the positive pathways are taking up all the resources. It is a daily, deliberate practice of cultivating your inner environment.
Speaking of cultivating a great environment, we're about 10 minutes into this deep dive, and I really want to pause for just a brief second to connect with all of you listening right now. If you are enjoying this natural listening flow, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel so more learners can find us. It genuinely helps us grow this amazing community.
It really does.
And actually, we would love to know more about the context of your learning today. Go into the comments right now and tell us, where are you listening from and what are you doing at this exact moment?
Oh, we truly enjoy reading about the diverse environments our listeners are in.
Seriously, it brings this entire project to life for us. Are you washing dishes in a kitchen in Brazil? Are you riding a crowded commuter bus in Turkey? Are you walking your dog through a park in Japan? Drop a comment and let us know. It transforms this experience from just a one-way audio file into a dynamic, global classroom.
It creates a remarkable feeling of connection. Now let's transition smoothly into our second psychological framework. We have thoroughly explored how the morning routine sets our biological baseline and how planting positive seeds can dictate our daily outlook. But let's fast forward 14 hours.
Okay, at the end of the day.
Right. The sun has gone down. What happens when night falls and your brain is just utterly depleted and exhausted from a chronic daily habit of worrying?
Oh, the nighttime worry. This is an entirely different beast. This is when your physical body is completely exhausted, your head finally hits the pillow, you close your eyes, and suddenly your brain turns on a massive stadium spotlight, points it right at your insecurities, and hands you a microphone.
It is an incredibly draining phenomenon. As our dopamine levels naturally drop in the evening, our cognitive defenses lower, so we experience this exhausting, futile feeling of trying to control the whole world from our pillow.
Controlling the world from your pillow. That captures the absurdity of it perfectly. You are lying there in the dark, entirely horizontal, and your mind decides this is the perfect moment to try and fix the global economy, cure international health crises, resolve a complicated conflict your friend is having, and meticulously plan a difficult conversation you might have 3 years from now.
And this relentless mental pacing introduces our fourth C1 vocabulary word, which is spiraling.
Spiraling.
Used as a noun or a verb in the psychological context, spiraling refers to the moment when a single small worry gains momentum, going down and down, spinning completely out of control until it becomes a massive catastrophic story in your head.
It is like a snowball rolling down a mountain, just turning into an avalanche.
Exactly.
An excellent example sentence for this would be, I watched one scary news story about the financial sector, and my mind immediately started spiraling. It starts with a simple observation like, oh, the stock market dipped slightly today.
And 10 minutes later.
Exactly. 10 minutes later, you are lying in bed, your heart is racing, and you are thinking, I am definitely going to lose my job. I will never be able to afford groceries. I'm going to lose my house and have to live in the woods. That intense, rapid escalation is spiraling.
The mechanism behind spiraling is essentially the brain's prediction machine malfunctioning. The brain's job is to predict the future to keep you safe, but when you are fatigued, it just loses its sense of proportion completely.
It overreacts to everything.
Right. And when you live in a constant nightly state of spiraling, you inevitably experience what our fifth C1 idiom perfectly captures.
Yes, the idiom is, keep your head above water. To keep your head above water means you are just barely managing to survive a difficult or overwhelming situation. You are not swimming beautifully with refined strokes. You are not relaxing on a comfortable pool float.
Not at all.
You are frantically kicking your legs under the surface as hard as you can, just trying not to drown.
It implies a state of high exertion with zero forward progress.
Exactly. An example sentence could be, with the unpredictability of the economy right now, many small business owners are just trying to keep their heads above water.
When your mind is constantly spiraling at night, emotionally and cognitively, you are just trying to keep your head above water. You wake up the next morning feeling physically exhausted because, from a neurological standpoint, you spent the whole night fighting massive imaginary battles.
Your brain processed that stress as if it were entirely real.
Yes, your body doesn't know the difference.
That sounds so unsustainable. So how do we stop fighting these imaginary night battles? How do we stop treading water and actually find solid ground?
We can achieve this with a highly effective cognitive behavioral strategy widely known as the two circles technique.
The two circles technique.
It is beautifully simple on paper, but incredibly profound in practice. You take a physical piece of paper and you literally draw two circles, one inside the other or side by side.
Yeah.
In the first circle, you write down everything in your life that you have direct, immediate control over.
So things like my daily diet, what time I choose to turn off my screens and go to sleep, how much water I drink, or choosing to send a kind message to a struggling friend.
Precisely. Tangible, direct, immediate actions. Then, in the second circle, you write down the things you absolutely cannot control.
Okay, so the actions of my past. What other people privately think of me. The daily geopolitical news. The weather tomorrow.
Right. And here is the illuminating insight that psychological practice shows.
Yeah.
It is believed that up to 90% of our daily exhausting anxiety lives entirely in the can't control circle.
90%.
Yes, we completely deplete our energy reserves trying to magically influence things that are mathematically and physically impossible for us to change from our beds.
Okay, I actually need to pause here and push back on this concept pretty strongly.
Yeah.
Because drawing two circles sounds very neat and tidy in theory. Focus on the control circle, ignore the rest. But is it really that simple or even ethical to just ignore this giant can't control circle? That circle contains massive real-world problems. It contains international conflicts. It contains economic crises that affect millions. It contains the health trajectories of our loved ones. Doesn't ignoring all of that just to protect our own peace feel a bit privileged or even irresponsible?
That is an exceptionally valid critique, and it really strikes at the heart of how we engage with a hyper-connected world today. But we must clarify the core rule of the two circles technique. It is absolutely not about living in ignorance, apathy, or privilege.
Okay, so you don't just pretend it doesn't exist.
Not at all. You are absolutely allowed to notice the things in the can't control circle. You can acknowledge them. You can be an informed, compassionate citizen who votes and cares deeply about the world. But the crucial psychological boundary is this. You are not allowed to stay in that circle and ruminate for an hour while lying in bed.
Ah, I see the distinction. You can notice the problem, but you cannot move your furniture in and live there.
Exactly. Let's use a spatial metaphor to make it clearer. Think of the can't control circle as a very noisy, chaotic, heavily polluted city street.
Like a massive intersection.
Right. You have to walk down it sometimes to get where you are going. You see the heady traffic, you hear the blaring sirens, you acknowledge the reality of the city, but you don't pitch a tent and try to sleep in the exact middle of the
Yeah, it'd
intersections.
be disastrous.
When you catch your brain spiraling in the can't control circle, you must recognize the environment and intentionally move your brain from that noisy street to a quiet, enclosed park.
By realizing that staying in the intersection doesn't actually stop the traffic, it just gets you run over.
Beautifully put. Worrying about the economy from your bed does not fix the economy, it only breaks your sleep.
So how do we actively move the mind to that quiet park when the sirens are just so loud in our heads?
By picking just one small, tangible thing from the can control circle and executing it immediately. If you are lying in bed spiraling about global news, you say out loud, I notice this worry, I care about this issue, but I cannot physically fix it right now. What can I control in this room?
Okay, so bringing it back to the immediate physical space.
Yes. You can control sitting up in silence. You can control a breathing exercise to lower your heart rate. You can control getting out of bed and drinking a cool glass of water. It is about anchoring your nervous system back in the present physical moment, in the realm of your own biological agency.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes you from being a helpless victim of global circumstance back into the driver's seat of your own physical reality. It literally shrinks the world down to a manageable size.
It does. And speaking of being in the driver's seat and navigating life, let's smoothly move to our third psychological framework.
I'm ready.
We have handled the immediate biological worry of the morning routine, and we have addressed the chronic spiraling at night. But what about the macro view? What about the future?
It's the big picture.
Because it is widely believed that long-term goals, which are fundamentally supposed to give us hope, direction, and purpose, while they are currently causing a massive epidemic of deep stress and inadequacy.
Yes, the absolute tyranny of modern goal setting. We are constantly told by productivity culture that we need strict 5-year plans, 10-year financial trajectories, optimized morning routines. And instead of feeling inspired by these targets, a huge portion of the population ends up suffering from what we could call the I should syndrome.
The I should syndrome is cognitively devastating because it frames your current existence as a failure.
It is that constant nagging, whispering voice in the back of your head. I should be making a higher salary by now. I should be as successful as my university friends. I should have a perfectly decorated house like that influencer on social media.
It's relentless.
It is not motivation. It is just a heavy, suffocating blanket of guilt.
And when you are buried under those endless shoulds, you just feel paralyzed. Which brings us to our sixth C1 vocabulary expression.
Right, which is a highly evocative idiom. Stuck in a rut.
Stuck in a rut.
If you are stuck in a rut, it means you are doing the exact same boring, unfulfilling, or trapping thing every single day without seeing any clear way forward. You feel completely stalled, like a car whose wheels are spinning in deep mud but going nowhere.
The origin of the phrase actually comes from wagons traveling on dirt roads. If the wheels fall into deep grooves or ruts made by previous wagons, it is incredibly difficult to steer out of them. You are just locked into the path.
That is a great visual, an example sentence. He felt completely stuck in a rut at his corporate job, doing the exact same administrative tasks for years without any chance of promotion. You have these huge, punishing life goals floating in your head, but your day-to-day physical reality is just spinning your wheels in the mud.
And the mud is made infinitely deeper and stickier by the constant modern habit of comparing ourselves to others. Which brings us to our seventh C1 expression, another classic idiom that is essential for advanced fluency. The grass isn't always greener.
Oh, this is a staple.
We usually hear the full traditional phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. But in modern, fast-paced conversation, native speakers almost always shorten it.
Because the cultural understanding is so deeply embedded, everyone already knows how the sentence ends.
Exactly. The definition of this idiom is basically a warning. Other people's lives look perfect, easy, and lush from an outside perspective, but you do not see their hidden problems, their crippling debts, their failing relationships, or their private anxieties.
An example sentence would be, when I saw his luxurious vacation photos, I was jealous, but then I remembered the grass isn't always greener. He works 80 hours a week and is heavily in debt. When you are scrolling on your phone and feeling that I should syndrome, you are unfairly comparing your chaotic, behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's highly edited, filtered highlight reel.
It is a rigged game that you can never win. And when you play that rigged game, you often create your own obstacles, bringing us to our eighth C1 vocabulary word, bottleneck.
Oh, this is a fantastic word. bottleneck?
Literally, it refers to the narrow neck of a glass bottle, which slows down the flow of liquid pouring out. In professional or psychological context, a bottleneck is a point of severe congestion or a specific blockage that slows down an entire system's progress.
So, an example sentence. Her perfectionism became a major bottleneck for the team's project because nothing could be published until she reviewed it 10 times.
Exactly. In the context of goal setting, having massive, vague, unrealistic expectations acts as a psychological bottleneck. Your ambition is huge, but the impossibly high standard you set clogs the system so no actual daily progress can flow through. You become your own bottleneck.
That is such a clear way to understand why we stall out.
Yeah.
So how do we remedy this? How do we clear the bottleneck? Because right now, setting ambitious goals feels like we're just setting up mental attackers to beat ourselves up with later. How do we turn these attackers into something that actually pulls us forward?
We do it by completely redefining the architecture of how we set goals. We really need to discard the massive 10-year pressures and instead create daily micro goals that follow two strict criteria. They must be clear and kind.
Clear and kind. It sounds so gentle compared to the usual crush your goals rhetoric.
When your life feels like dry ground and you are exhausted and stuck in a rut, massive vague goals will only paralyze your nervous system further. A goal like, I want to be rich and fluent in English by next year is not clear, and it is certainly not kind.
Which is a recipe for failure.
Instead, psychological practice shows we should create 3 daily micro goals. They must be perfectly clear so the brain knows exactly what the physical instructions are without having to burn energy guessing. And they must be kind, meaning they are gentle, easily achievable on a bad day, and do not hurt you with unnecessary pressure.
Can you break that down and give us the exact examples of what these 3 micro goals should look like in practice?
Absolutely. You divide your focus into 3 foundational categories of human well-being: health, work, and heart.
Health, work, and heart.
For health, instead of saying, I will lose 20 pounds, a clear and kind goal is walk for 20 minutes immediately after dinner. It is specific, it is achievable even if you are tired, and it gently nourishes the body.
That is so low friction.
Exactly. For work or personal development, study or read for exactly 20 minutes a day. Not learn an entire language in a month or read a book a week. Just set a timer for 20 minutes of unbroken focus. And for heart, which addresses our social connections, send exactly 1 message a day to someone you care about just to check in.
Walk 20 minutes. Study 20 minutes. Send 1 text message. That is incredibly manageable.
It is deeply manageable, but the cumulative compounding effect over 6 months is mathematically profound. Which brings us to a powerful, clarifying metaphor. Setting these micro goals is very much like driving a car at night in heavy, thick fog. If you are stuck in a rut, experiencing the Aishin syndrome, you are sitting in the car on the side of the road with the lights totally off, terrified of the fog because you can't see the city you are trying to reach.
Because you can't see the final destination, you refuse to put the car in drive.
Exactly. But goals are not meant to show you the entire destination. They are not high-beam floodlights that illuminate the next 50 miles of the highway. Clear and kind goals are just regular, standard headlights. They only illuminate the next few meters of the road right in front of your bumper.
And that's enough.
The secret of navigating through life is this. If you can just see the next few meters, that is entirely enough to keep the car moving forward safely.
And as you move forward those few meters, the headlights naturally illuminate the next few meters. The horizon moves with you. You don't need to see the whole route. You just keep taking the next right step. And when you adopt this philosophy, you eventually experience our 9th C1 vocabulary word, bounce back.
A vital concept in resilience.
To bounce back is a dynamic phrasal verb that means to recover slowly but surely after a difficult setback, a failure, or an illness. Imagine a rubber ball hitting the hard floor and springing back up into the air. It doesn't shatter. It absorbs the impact and returns.
It is the absolute essence of human resilience.
An example sentence for our learners. It takes time and patience. But you can always bounce back from mistakes in your English speaking if you just keep practicing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to see fluency 50 miles down the road. You just need those headlights to show you the next 20-minute practice session today.
And this gradual transition from feeling stuck in a rut, clearing the bottleneck, and slowly bouncing back is a beautiful, deeply human process. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of the human experience, we really must pause and acknowledge a very difficult truth.
Which is what?
That even with the best headlights in the world, even if you perfectly plant positive seeds in your morning garden, and even if you master the 2 circles to calm your nighttime anxiety, Well, sometimes life just hurts,
Yeah.
unfairly and deeply.
Yeah, that is the hard, unavoidable reality. We can have all the optimized habits and micro goals in the world, but we cannot prevent genuine pain, sudden loss, or profound heartache. Sometimes the fog doesn't just represent confusion, it represents a storm. Sometimes a car breaks down completely.
And that sobering reality leads us to our fourth and final psychological framework for today: living through pain.
This feels like a necessary shift in tone. Because when you're facing real, devastating heartache, the sudden loss of a loved one, a terrible life-altering breakup, or a massive, humiliating career failure, you cannot just positive think your way out of it. You cannot just use a 5-minute short circuit to fix a broken heart.
Exactly. Attempting to use productivity hacks on deep grief is essentially psychological denial. The core concept we must embrace here is that you cannot think your way out of deep emotional pain. You have to physically and temporally live your way through it.
You just have to let time pass.
Yes. And when we desperately try to think our way out of it, we usually end up trapped in our 10th C1 vocabulary word, which is the powerful verb to brood.
Brood. Even the phonetic sound of that word feels heavy and dark.
It is meant to. To brood means to sit and intensely, darkly think about something sad, angry, or painful for a long time, actively choosing to stay inside that heavy feeling. It is crucial to understand how it differs from our very first word today, dwelling.
Let's clarify that distinction for the
Well,
listeners.
dwelling is often associated with nervous anxiety or an annoying, solvable problem. You dwell on an awkward conversation or an unpaid bill. Brooding is much deeper and more isolating. It is wrapping yourself in a heavy blanket of sorrow or resentment and refusing to come out into the light. It is a state of psychological hibernation fueled by pain.
That is a very vivid distinction. An example sentence would be, after the devastating breakup, he stopped answering his phone, just stayed in his dark room, and brooded for weeks.
Now, we must be clear, a little bit of grieving and withdrawing is a natural, necessary phase of human healing. But brooding indefinitely paralyzes your future. It becomes a secondary trauma. Instead of brooding endlessly, psychological practice shows we need to transition into engaging with our 11th C1 expression, work through.
To work through something. This is an incredibly useful phrasal verb. The definition is to slowly process and deal with a difficult, complex feeling or problem step by step, rather than hiding from it, ignoring it, or letting it completely crush you. You are actively doing the internal labor required to get to the other side of the pain.
It implies effort over a sustained period of time.
Exactly, an example sentence. It takes many months to truly work through the heartache of a divorce, but small daily actions eventually help you heal.
To understand how to work through something, let's analyze the physical sensation of emotional pain, because it helps explain why working through it is so exhausting. When you are grieving, the psychological pain feels entirely physical.
It really does manifest in the body. It feels like you're wearing heavy, soaking wet winter clothes all day long. Every basic movement takes 10 times the normal energy. Or, to use another visual, it feels like an invisible background app running on your smartphone. It is silently draining your battery down to zero, and you can't figure out why you are so exhausted just from existing.
That background app analogy perfectly explains the cognitive depletion of grief. The emotional processing is eating up all your RAM. Another helpful way to visualize this is the metaphor of the heavy backpack.
The heavy backpack.
Yes. When something terrible and permanent happens, life essentially straps a massive backpack full of rocks onto your shoulders. The key insight of acceptance and commitment therapy is this: you have to carry the backpack. You cannot magically take it off, and you cannot pretend it isn't there.
Right, the pain is real.
However, you do not have to sit on the floor, give up, and stop your entire life just because you are wearing it.
That is a paradigm shift. You acknowledge the weight, but you realize you can still walk slowly with the backpack on.
Exactly. You work through the deep pain by returning to the absolute simplest, most foundational routines of being human. You don't try to conquer the world. You don't worry about 5-year plans. You wake up. You manage to take a warm shower. You eat one nutritious meal. You move your body for 10 minutes, even just stretching. You talk to one safe, non-judgmental person.
Just the basics.
You are walking forward with the backpack on, and over time, as your mental muscles get stronger, almost imperceptibly, the backpack begins to feel just a little bit lighter.
So when a listener is completely overwhelmed by a heavy, crushing problem today, what is this specific, actionable strategy to help them stand up and start walking with that backpack?
We call it the one-sentence rule. When a problem feels so monumental that it is crushing you, your brain panics and creates a massive, tangled web of secondary anxieties. To slice right through that overwhelming web, you take a pen and paper and you write down the exact phrase. The problem is.
Okay, the problem is.
And you must forcefully limit yourself to finishing that thought in exactly one clear, concise sentence. Not a rambling paragraph, not 20 lines of spiraling anxiety about the past and future, just one singular sentence defining the core wound.
I see. So, for example, instead of writing an emotional essay about how nobody likes you, how you are a failure, and how you will never succeed in life, you strip all of that away and write. The problem is I feel deeply alone in this new city.
Perfect. Look at what that does. It strips away the catastrophizing panic and isolates the actual tangible issue. Once you have that one anchoring sentence, you write down exactly 3 small, non-magical things to try this week to address it.
I love the term non-magical, meaning these actions won't fix the deep problem instantly. They won't cure your grief overnight, but they are undeniable steps forward. So if the sentence is, the problem is I feel deeply alone in this new city, the 3 non-magical things could be. Number 1, I will join an online language exchange group on Tuesday. Number 2, we'll send a voice message to an old friend just to hear a familiar voice. Number 3, I will sit in a public cafe for an hour with a book, so I'm at least breathing the same air as other humans.
Exactly. Look at the profound psychological shift that just happened there. You moved your mind from a state of passive, brooding suffering, I have a massive, unsolvable flaw in my life, to a state of active, courageous agency. I'm actively working through this specific, isolated problem.
You turn the headlights back on.
Turn the headlights on despite the terrifying fog.
That is so incredibly powerful and grounding. And looking back, we have covered so much vital ground today. We have talked about the mechanics of the morning happiness switch, escaping the sad breakfast by planting seeds and short-circuiting negative thoughts. We mapped out the 2 circles technique to stop nighttime spiraling and reclaim our cognitive load. We identified bottlenecks and redefined goals from being cruel attackers to clear and kind headlights. And we just discussed how to courageously live your way through real physical pain using the 1-sentence rule.
It truly is a comprehensive, lifelong toolkit for achieving and maintaining mental lightness.
It absolutely is. And as promised at the very beginning of this deep dive, to make absolutely sure all of the rich C1 level English we use today truly sticks in your mind and becomes part of your active vocabulary, it is time for our special bonus section. Welcome to the Calm Word Tour.
This is the critical moment where we solidify the language learning through spaced repetition.
Exactly. We are going to briefly and rhythmically recap the core vocabulary themes we discussed today. These are the words that are going to elevate your everyday English flow and help you sound incredibly natural, nuanced, and fluent. Let's run through them together.
We started by analyzing our outlook. That is your general, filtered perspective on life. Remember, you can control your outlook by carefully choosing what media and thoughts you consume first thing in the morning.
Then we examine the danger when you dwell on something, sitting on a negative thought and replaying it endlessly without seeking a solution. When you find yourself dwelling on the past, you urgently need our next word.
Short circuit. The act of intentionally interrupting that bad mental pattern. You short-circuit the anxious brain by physically changing your environment or sensory input for just 5 minutes.
Which gracefully prevents our 4th word, spiraling. That terrifying moment when a small worry spins completely out of control into a massive catastrophe in your head.
And if you spiral every night, you will feel like you are just trying to keep your head above water, barely surviving the overwhelm, treading water but making no progress.
That constant exhaustion leaves you feeling stuck in a rut, doing the same trapping, unfulfilling routines every single day.
A feeling that is always worsened by assuming the grass isn't always greener, the illusion that everyone else's life is perfect, masking their hidden struggles.
To move forward, you must identify your bottleneck. That point of congestion, often caused by your own unrealistic expectations, that stops your progress.
By clearing that bottleneck with clear and kind goals, you give yourself the ability to bounce back, to slowly recover your momentum after a difficult setback.
But when genuine tragedy strikes and life hands you a heavy backpack, you must be careful not to brood. Do not wrap yourself in a dark blanket of sorrow and refuse to move.
Instead, you must courageously choose to work through it. You process the complex pain step by step, returning to basic routines with quiet dignity.
That is 11 incredibly powerful words. You can confidently use every single one of these expressions in your professional and personal daily life. But wait, I explicitly promised 12 C1 expressions at the start of the show, and we have one final piece of vocabulary left. It is an idiom, and it perfectly beautifully captures the essence of everything we have talked about today regarding personal agency.
Our 12th and final idiom is, the ball is in your court.
Ah, classic tennis reference.
Exactly. In a game of tennis, when the opponent hits the ball over the net, it lands in your half of the court. The rules dictate that it is now entirely your turn to swing. In daily life, the definition of this idiom is, it is your turn to act, take responsibility, or make a crucial decision. Life has served you a specific situation. Maybe it is a stressful Monday morning, maybe it is a difficult career challenge, or maybe it is a period of heavy grief, and now your next move is entirely up to you.
That is brilliant. An example sentence to lock it in. You know what the problem is, and you have written down your options. Now the ball is in your court.
It is the ultimate linguistic statement of personal responsibility and emotional agency.
So as we finally wrap up this extensive deep dive, what is the grand synthesis? If a listener forgets the specific details but remembers one core philosophy, what should they take away from all of this?
The core philosophy is simply this. Sustainable inner happiness and true mental lightness are not about executing massive, flawless life overhauls. You do not need to quit your corporate job, abandon your responsibilities, and move to a remote mountain to find peace. Peace is found in quiet, daily courage. It is about acknowledging the heavy backpack you are carrying, honestly looking at your two circles of control, and keeping the car moving slowly in a kinder direction. It is just planting one small, positive seed at a time.
I love that deeply. Moving slowly in a kinder direction. Now, before we officially sign off, I have a vital assignment for you, the listener. I want you to go into the comments right now and do two specific things. First, write the exact phrase, "I stay committed," in the comment box. This is your personal badge of honor. It signals to your own brain that you finished this intensive English practice and you are fiercely dedicated to your own growth.
It is a fantastic psychological mechanism to seal the learning and build identity.
And second, here is your interactive idiom challenge. I want you to use our 12th and final idiom, "the ball is in your court," to describe a real situation in your own life right now. Write a full sentence in the comments showing us how you would use it naturally. We absolutely cannot wait to read them and reply.
It has been a profound pleasure guiding you through these mental frameworks and linguistic nuances today.
It really has been transformative. And please remember once more to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to keep our global classroom thriving and growing. Your continued support means the world to us and actively helps other ambitious learners around the globe find their flow.
And as you unplug and move into the rest of your day, or perhaps as you get ready for a restful sleep, we want to leave you with one final lingering thought.
Remember exactly how we started this journey together. We talked about that cozy, peaceful Sunday afternoon suddenly being ruined by the anxious thought of Monday morning. Well, tomorrow morning, you are going to wake up. And the modern world is immediately going to try to hand you a sad breakfast. The world is going to try to dump its weeds into your mental garden. So our final provocative question for you to mull over today is this. When you open your eyes tomorrow morning, what is the very first seed you are going to actively choose to plant before the world tries to hand you its weeds?